What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Dustin and Tanya podcast.
2.0.
2.0 means we're on season 2. We've been doing this for like 19 episodes now. I think this is episode 7 of season 2, and today we are going to talk about travel. So it's summertime, people are traveling, kids are out of school, parents are going on vacation, yada, yada, yada. And if there's anybody that knows a little something about travel, it's the two of us. And so today we're going to share a little bit of our experience, a little bit of our wisdom, a little bit of how we have done things, and a lot of bit about of our experiences and how it's ultimately changed our lives. So I joined the railroad in 2006, and I literally traveled for 13 years while I worked for the railroad. All 13 years I traveled all across the country. So that was a lot of experience for me. And along those travels, obviously I met Tanya, we got married, we did all these things, but eventually we got to a point where you were like, look, man, you come home every weekend telling me about prostitutes in Memphis with their boots out, and you got, the car wreck in Kansas City, it's on fire, and all these situations. And ultimately you were like, I would like to travel sometime too.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in a small town, and so I had always dreamt of travel. And when Dustin was traveling on the railroad, like he said, he would come home all the time with all these crazy stories. And it was not so much that I wanted to have these crazy things happen, but it was more of like, you get to go and see so much of the world and the way that things are, that I'm just here in this bubble of this little town. I want to experience these things, good, bad, or not. I want experience.
Yeah. And so ultimately in 2017, we decided to sell everything we owned. And 18 and 19, we traveled with the railroad, motel to motel. In 2018 alone, we were in 25 different states and 19 or 20 national parks. And so if you can imagine what that's like, I was literally just doing some quick research on travel and why it's so funny to me, the way Americans travel and the way Americans do things is the average American only ever makes it to 17 states in their entire life. And less than 50% make it to 10 or less. So 50% of them make it to 17, which is absurd amount. And 48% was 10 states or less. Now, the other funny fact was Americans are all for entertainment and, going to the big game or the show or the whatever. And honestly, it didn't surprise me one bit that more people have been to a professional tennis match, golf tournament, or NASCAR race as opposed to Yellowstone National Park, Grand Canyon National Park, or Mount Rushmore. Wow. And it makes perfect sense. We as Americans want to be entertained. We want to, kind of have it comfortable. And that's something that I want to talk about right out the gate is what you were saying earlier is the thing that is the coolest and the hardest part about travel is you're always uncomfortable.
Yeah, the entire time you're uncomfortable. Just to take it to our experience of, when we lived in the bus. Not only is it uncomfortable going to new places that you're unfamiliar with, so you're unfamiliar with how to navigate the city that you're in or where you need to go, but for us in that time living in the bus, it was, where are we going to sleep tonight? Is it a safe space to sleep? Is it all of these different factors? So you're always on the edge of being uncomfortable all the time, but also you get that exhilarating experience of being somewhere new, and so it kind of balances itself out, but you're always uncomfortable because you never know what to expect.
Yeah, and usually we didn't know people, so we were on our own. We don't know the city because we grew up in Nebraska, so all of a sudden you show up in Seattle in a jacked up black truck and you end up downtown, and next thing you know it's 4:30 and there are people everywhere. And all of a sudden it was holy cow, we need to get the heck out of here because this is wildness.
Yeah.
And so we literally drove 10 blocks back, parked, and walked 10 blocks just to get out of the chaos of the hustle and bustle of people rolling out of Seattle on Friday at 5 p.m. downtown.
Yeah, and other experiences is places that you are familiar with. In different states, they change. So it's not always the same. So for example, we would always shop at Walmart for the most part to go get groceries. And I will never forget, and granted, this is my first year of travel with Dustin in 2018. So not only are we driving like 13 hours at a time to get across different states, which was completely new to me, but we go to a city that we've never been to. So now you got to navigate and find like, okay, where are we going to go get groceries this week? And so we usually try to find a Walmart. And we went to that Walmart, and there's cops parked outside, which was like really new to me. I'm like, wow, they have like cops that patrol this Walmart. And we go inside, and it is the worst Walmart I've ever been in, honestly. There was not like a lot of the things that I was familiar with having, like a deli and stuff like that, they didn't have it. And the section of like the dairy and stuff was completely wiped out. And so it was just a whole new experience of like, wow, this is completely different from any Walmart I've ever been in. And I honestly don't know if I really feel safe being in this Walmart. And so we left. And the crazy thing is that, you go like a couple blocks down and you find this whole different place in the city. It's wild.
Yeah, so what Tanya's explaining is it was a low income housing area, like Section 8 housing. So the Walmart that we went to was like EBT, like it was all government money. And so there was literally like 3 grocery aisles, and it was like compacted into one. Like there was hardly any freezer section. There was no deli. There was no rotisserie chickens or things like that. Like it was a low income Walmart. And so we got in there, and the only reason we left is because they didn't have the things that we were looking for. And so we literally roll out, drive a block and a half down the road, and end up at a super Target that is like, has everything. It's, clean and fresh. And it was literally like you could see the Walmart from the Target. Like that's all the farther that we had to go. It was just a matter of breaking that line in the city, which is some of the things that you find in the culture and homelessness and heroin needles and things like that you don't experience growing up in small town Nebraska. And I'm not saying that that's like the reason you should go travel is to go to Denver and find a bunch of heroin needles. Like, no, but it opens your eyes up, number one, to empathy, because you start to see that people live differently than the way you grew up. Not one is better, not one is worse. They just grew up differently, or they lived somewhere else, so they have a different experience in life. And it allows you to get a taste of their experience in life, right? I remember when I was younger, I was like 16, 17, and I used to build lowrider trucks. And I know like tall white dude building lowrider trucks wasn't necessarily the like normal thing, but I would call this company in California and I would order lowrider parts. And finally I had made like 10 orders through this company. And the dude was like, look, man, you call here all the time. You always want new parts, but I got to ask you. He's like, how do you drive your lowrider truck down the dirt roads in Nebraska? And I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, well, it's all just cornfields and stuff out there, right? And I was like, no, like we have interstates and running water and electricity. And he was like, dude, I literally had no idea. Like all I've ever heard is it's just all cornfields. And so like that is somebody else's perspective because they haven't had the opportunity or taken the opportunity to travel the country and see what's actually out there.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, like I think about, a couple of different states that we traveled in. So first one I'm going to say is Montana. Driving through Montana, I always had this idea, right, that it's this big, beautiful state with like such beautiful country. But if you ever go to the east side of Montana,
literally 75 to 80% of Montana sucks.
It is not the most beautiful. It's dry, it's dusty, it's all these, it is not what I expected. But I wouldn't have known that because I had this picture based off of what I've seen on TV.
Crystal clear lakes, flowing rivers.
Right. So I have this picture, and then when I get there, I'm like, wow, I had no idea that part of Montana was that way. But then also, too, the state that we're in currently, Arizona, knowing, like, when we first traveled through, it was in 2018, we were on our way to go do a big hike in Havasupai Falls, and we're leaving New Mexico, and we drive into Arizona, and I'm thinking Arizona's just desert. Like, it's just this deserty, flat kind of land that has cactuses and all of these things. And we're literally driving through Flagstaff, and they are in the middle of a snowstorm, and there's mountains, and there's like green trees and a pine forest. And I'm like, wow, I had no idea that mountains even existed in Arizona, because I had no idea.
Yeah.
And so when you travel, you open yourself up to this world that you've never even thought or imagined is possible, because you only get a little small clip from what you hear from other people, what you see on TV, and that's really about it. And so when you go and actually travel and go out into the wilderness, you get to experience all of these things that you get to find and make your own judgment based off of it.
Yeah. And that's what's cool is, like, we've been to states that have surprised us, one of them being Illinois.
Yeah.
Obviously, we lived close to Illinois. Chicago was like 8 hours from where we grew up. But little did we know that there was like 40 some waterfalls that we found in the state of Illinois. And obviously, they have gotten swamped with, you know, I think, what was it? It's not Slide Rock.
Starved
Rock State Park. It got ridiculous because of Instagram and all these things, but like we got to experience it. I don't know if it's still even open anymore. But like when we went in 2018, it was ridiculous. Mm-hmm. Tanya and I went on an early Saturday morning. We rolled in. That, like, if there's one thing I've learned about travel, it's go early and be done by noon, because most people are showing up at like 10 and you're already on your way out, and it just makes it more comfortable. You're not swamped by everybody else. Yeah. But the biggest thing was, like, we showed up early and we thought it was really weird that there was like a parking dude and he like helped us through it, and we were like, I don't understand, because there was only like 10 people there. And so we roll in, we get parked, we go hiking for 4, 5, 6 hours. We noticed that like traffic was starting to get big on the trails, and it was like, cool, we're almost done, we can grab some of these during the week, because there was like 14 or 15 waterfalls in one park. Mm-hmm. So we got like 11, and we were going to grab the other 3 or 4 like on a Tuesday when no one was there. We go get back to our car, and it is like Kid Rock is performing a freaking concert. There is 100,000 vehicles there. People are parked in the ditch. People are parked like insane. There was this parking lot, there was another parking lot, there was golf cart people running people around.
There was
like
traffic control.
It was traffic control, and I'm like, dude.
And this is in the middle of nowhere. In the middle of absolute nowhere.
There's literally signs on the interstate back then that was like, listen, Starved Rock has been taking a beating, like, expect traffic, expect, interstate closures. Yeah. And we're like, what? And it was, man, literally, there was like, so wild. It was unbelievable. And so that was an experience, right? But it's allowed us to open ourselves up to meet new people. Like, I've had some of the greatest conversations with people that I didn't know, standing staring at a rock in Colorado, or sitting in a hot tub in freaking Washington, or you know what I mean? And it's like, when you open yourself up to new people, you open yourself up to new experiences, you open yourself up to new places, there's a good energy to it, there's a good vibe to it, and you start to realize that not only is maybe not what you've been taught correct, but also like some of my greatest experiences in life have come from traveling. My favorite foods literally come from all over the country. And like my favorite dessert from Spokane, Washington, my favorite pizza, El Paso, Texas, like, and it's because we've opened ourselves up. It's because we've taken the risks and the chances to like literally go see what's happening, what's going on. But not only that, like, we went on tour in the middle of the coronavirus. And although the news was like, coronavirus, blah, 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 we were on the road from August 18th, 2021 until December 31st, 2021. We went from Utah to Pensacola, Florida, all the way to San Diego and back to Frisco, Texas, and everything in between. And I think I wore a mask 3 times. 2 of them being in an Uber.
Yeah, 2 of them were in
because
Uber.
it was required.
Yeah, one was in New Mexico.
And one was in New Mexico to check in at the motel.
Mm-hmm.
And so all this stuff that like we were being told, like you couldn't go anywhere and you couldn't do anything and you couldn't, like everything was locked down and everything was masked and you had to be vaccinated and all these things, like I wasn't finding it to be true for myself.
Yeah, I think like the biggest one for sure was, I remember when we were getting ready to go to Nashville, outside of Nashville, and they were saying at the time like they were arresting people and doing all this stuff, and we did not experience like anything. And so yeah, I mean it allows us to seek for ourselves to find like what's truth. Because it's really easy to try to take in information from all sorts of people and listen to them, and until you form your own judgment. Like I will never forget when we left Nevada to go to Salt Lake City during the pandemic. And people were saying, oh my, you're not going to be able to leave, they're not letting you go across the interstates, they're shut down, blah blah blah. And we were like, yeah, I don't know, we're just going to try it. And we did, and it worked out great for us. And so I think like it allows you to form your own opinion, your own perspective and judgment on the way that things are going, when you follow what you feel is what you need to do. Yeah,
and so it's just been, you know, at this point I think we're at 38 states or 39 states, and I think 25 national parks.
25 national parks. I don't remember the states, but yeah.
And that is ridiculous. Like that's double what one average American does in a lifetime. But like, I think the biggest thing that I said earlier is like realizing empathetically that people live differently. So yes, like we've encountered homeless camps, and we've encountered, you know, I'll never forget the dude in Kansas City it was like 1 PM. Tanya and I were downtown. This guy was, I'm assuming, a homeless person, living in a wheelchair. His leg was amputated, and when we went by, he had fell out of his wheelchair. His jug of vodka was like tucked up underneath of his armpit, and he was out cold on the concrete, no pad, no nothing. And we went downtown for like 2 or 3 hours, came back past the same dude, and he was in the exact same spot. And I just thought, like, I couldn't lay on the concrete that long without myself being banged up. That dude's, you know, obviously going through something different than I'm going through. But like that experience, like, I have more empathy towards homeless people or people that are struggling. Like, it's easy for me to give. It's easy for me, like, it doesn't, if I got a half a bottle of water, like, I will give you whatever I have, just because I can't imagine what it's like to be in that much need. But it's taken opening my eyes. It's taken going to the border. It's taken, you know, going to these places, and I've seen both sides of it. So 2008, I was traveling with the railroad, and like we ran into discrimination, real talk, in the South both ways. Like we checked into a motel room, and the lady behind the desk said that we was the wrong color and we didn't belong there. And it was like, no, the railroad put us up there. And she said, well, like, don't go downtown, don't go to, because like you guys are not supposed to be here. You're not the color that fits in here. And it was like, wait, what? Like, it's 2008. And later that year, we had a roadmaster that literally got served a steak on a chilled plate at a restaurant, and he was a black man, and they, like, he got legitimate like racial issues with that. And it was like, man, 2008, like, what are we doing? And it wasn't too much longer, and Obama got elected, and that was crazy. We were in Memphis, and the Ku Klux Klan had just rented out an entire motel that we were staying in, so we had to move. Like, but these are all experiences that like I would have never had or never understood or never realized that like it's very, very true. Like these things are still happening today. Right. They're just not talked about. They're just not covered. And what is covered is usually like not what's actually happening anyway. And so, yeah, like I think when it boils down to it, I've learned more from traveling. I've learned more from like, you learn to tie into your intuition. You learn to tie into gut feelings like, hey, is it okay for us to park here? Is it,
Yeah.
you know, but the other opportunity too has just been like the people that we've been able to meet,
Yeah,
you know.
I think experiencing different cultures has been really cool too. You know, just even just getting to know different cultures and how they do things, but even like the foods and stuff like that. Just kind of opening your eyes up more to people around the world, because there's a lot of places that are like meccas for all different kinds of ethnicities, like Denver. Denver has
Melting pot.
a melting pot of ethnicities that you can try. We've had amazing Indian food there. We've had amazing Mexican food there. We've had, like, there's so much good stuff there because there's just this culture that is just combined in this one city. Like, Denver is one of our favorite cities.
Yeah.
But just getting that experience to experience all of that in the travels alone.
Yeah, and that's what, like, I think at the end of the day, just allowing yourself those experiences, allowing yourself to get out of the rat race of where you were, you know, like, I think they say, like, most people die within 10 minutes of their house. Why? Because most people never leave more than 10 minutes from their house.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's there's a whole world out there. There's all these opportunities. There's all these things to see and do, and likely in your state. I remember that time I was looking in Pennsylvania. There's an entire highway that got shut down, and it's all been tatted with graffiti, and it's wild. Like, it's overgrown, and people have just, like, used it as a hiking trail, but it's all, and it's like, those are the things that you don't even realize might be 10 miles from your house.
Yeah, and you know, I'm glad you said that, because I remember when you and I first started to get out and experience stuff. Like, we used to always say, like, there's nothing cool to do in Nebraska. Like, Nebraska sucks. There's nothing to do there. But until we actually, like, opened up our mind and was like, man, what are some things that we can do that's in this area? And there was quite a bit of stuff that we never would have experienced if we didn't open our eyes and our heart up to finding what was in our own state to see what it was about. So, like, I would encourage you, like, if you are wanting to kind of venture out, you don't have to go to different states. Start within your own state.
Yeah.
See what things that your state offers, which you can do within a day's drive or even just a weekend, and start to explore that way. But that will still open you up to different experiences and to see, like, what's really out there. And you might find that there's things that are close to you that's like, wow, dang, I didn't realize that this was, like, only 2 hours from my house. Let's go, you know, here more often, or whatever the case may be.
Yes, so I think the biggest reason we wanted to talk about travel is, obviously, we did it in a pickup, living out of motels. We did it in a school bus, traveling all over the country for 5 years. And now, just last week, we purchased a van that we are building into a home. It's a 2021 Ram ProMaster, and so we will literally spend the next probably 6 months building it into a house. We move into it in like 50 days.
Yeah.
We're gonna give up our apartment and go travel again. And the reason that is like, every time we settle down, whether it's 6 months, 10 months, 12 months, 18 months, 20, it's like travel always calls us back. And it's just because there's so many opportunities, there's so much experience. It opens the doors. I hear so many people that, like, don't like their job, or don't like the state that they live in, or don't like the situation that they're in, but they're so afraid of change that they just are more willing to stay stuck there than they are to go experience. And for me, like, I want to be the opposite. Like, people are like, yo, why do you keep leaving, or why do you keep traveling? It's like, it's not necessarily that I'm seeking something, but I'm clearly not settled. And it's clearly like, I want to see more. I'm sure I've done a lot, but, like, as far as I know, there's 12 more states that I haven't seen. Right. As far as I know, there's like 36 more national parks I need to hit. And that's just in this country. We're not even talking we've only touched one island in Hawaii. Right. Mexico, we've been to Cabo and Puerto Vallarta, but, like, there's an entire rest of the country there. Mexico City is the biggest city in the world. Right. Like, there's so many things to do and so many things to see. And, like, once we got that bug, it was like, I don't ever want to give that bug up again. So yes, we sold the bus. it was time for an upgrade. This thing literally has 24,000 miles on it. We're going to be able to take it everywhere and do anything that we want to do. And so for me, it's like opening that door of opportunity again, opening that window of like, what's next for us? What can we do? How can we do it?
I think too, you know, you talk about like a lot of people don't like where they live, or from what we've heard, there's people that we know who hate where they live, right? And the travel, like that has given us the opportunity to find what states we do like. You know, and a lot of like us moving to Flagstaff was because when we came here in 2018, there was 2 states that we loved, and that was, we loved Washington and we loved Arizona, specifically Flagstaff area. And once you know it, here we are, you know, so it gave us that experience to find like places that we like, and like, you know what, I kind of want to try that place out. Don't know how long we're going to be there. And I never, like, I have learned to never put a timestamp on where I'm going to be, because I know where my heart is, and I know that my heart will always continue to change wherever it's supposed to go. I mean, we've talked about having a homestead, right? And that's still in the works. That's still a plan, but travel right now is the thing that's on our heart. And that will give us the opportunity to find where we even want to have a homestead at, you know, because it gives us the opportunity to continue to travel and seek and experience and find places like, man, I really like this place. I dig this place. It's time to settle down when our heart is ready. So it just really opens up that door to give you the availability to find where you want to be, you know? So if you don't like where you live, go explore. Find where you do want to go live. Like, we did a lot of research on Flagstaff before we moved here, you know, and it's been a eye-opener still, even after doing research, different things that we're not used to, mountain weather, monsoon season is about to start here. We have no idea what that is, but you know, like, it's a cool experience that we get to have.
I think the biggest misunderstanding of me and you is that something had to go wrong, or that they left because of this or that. And it's like, no. Like, I loved Bluffdale, Utah. Like, we literally looked into the mountains. It was a beautiful city. Our apartment was super nice, and we loved it. It was just time for us to hit the road and go on tour and do our own thing. Frisco, Texas, like, the weather sucks, it's hot, but like, we loved it there. It was great. We had great friends, great people, great church, great everything. But like, nothing bad had to happen. Like, here we are in Flagstaff, literally my favorite city. I love this place. I love where we live. I love this apartment building complex. I love everything about it. But I love to travel. And so my love for travel is the reason that I'm leaving. It's not this like, oh, well, they must have something. And I've heard that, like, well, you guys never plant roots. It's like, I don't think we have to. Like, we're the internet and cable, and like, you can talk to somebody in Hong Kong today, and you can freaking, you know, look at a star next to Pluto through a freaking lens. Like, we can go, we can see, we can do, we can be anywhere, do anything. You can live in Bangladesh and make millions of dollars off of a $1,200 Apple laptop. Like,
even like connection wise with people, like I FaceTime my parents like once a month, probably minimum once a month. And I get the ability with technology to visit them in Nebraska while I'm here in Flagstaff or wherever I'm at. So like, just because, you know, you travel or you want to move around and stuff, like, there's so much advancement in everything that, like, it affords us the availability, I can't say that word today, the ability to do what we want to do, go where we want to go, and still have relationships and build businesses and do the things that we want to do, all while exploring where our heart wants to take us.
Yeah, and I think that's some of it too, is like, well, you're supposed to own a home, and you're supposed to have 2.5 kids, and you're supposed to do this and 401k and do all that. And like, listen, I did that for 13 years with the railroad, and it was like, this just doesn't necessarily fit my needs or what I'm looking for, so I'm gonna go build what I want. But it's because of where I live, and it's because of the things that are available to me and the options that I can take, where it's like I'm more than willing to live in a van that's solar powered and off grid, and I don't need anything from anybody to afford me the ability to go do what I want and see what I want. And so, yeah, dude, there's a ton of sacrifices. Like we've literally sacrificed our entire lives, our life savings, our businesses, our health. Like we've sacrificed all kinds of things to live the life that we want to live. But like we're only going to live once. So I'm going to live how I want. And just because I don't have a house and a pool and a backyard and all these things, like my backyard will change every morning if I wanted to. My opportunities to wake up next to a volcano, or wake up next to a river, or wake up next to a geyser, or, wake up in the middle of a prairie, like those are the things that I enjoy. And because I live in this day and age, like it's available to me. So I take them opportunities and I do the things that I want to do. But like, don't get me wrong. It's not a matter of like, well, they don't have a house, or they don't have this, or they don't have that. It's like, no, these are the choices that we've made.
Yeah.
These are the things that we've done, and this is why we're here. Like I can go get a job, I can go buy a house, I can go do whatever I'm supposed to do. Like that was literally how we started. Was like my parents were like, well, what are you gonna do for a house? And we were like, we're not gonna have one. And they were like, well, then what are you gonna come back to? And I'm like, I'm not coming back to anything. Like we're leaving on the road to travel. And they just didn't understand that. And then until I was like, listen, I own a house now. I'm going to sell it. I'm going to go travel. And if that's for a week, a month, a year, or 10 years, when I'm done, I know this might sound crazy, but I can go back and buy another house and do another thing and, plant a garden. Yeah. And so it's like that, taking that risk, taking that option, taking that availability, for us has taught us so much and allowed us to see and do all these things, just because we changed our perspective a little bit and was willing to, make moves and make changes.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is we decided to trade in our stuff for experience.
Yeah.
Like that's the biggest thing, at least, like that I can answer, is that I wanted experiences from the get-go, from the very first start. I wanted experiences, and I continue to want more experience. I continue to want to grow and learn and get uncomfortable and take risks and overcome fear of whatever I have that's going on, of like, oh, I don't have a house to go to every night, but yes, I do. I get to take it wherever I go. And like just overcoming all of these things and just figuring out like my thing that I wanted was experiences. So I'm going and I'm chasing it, despite the fear that I have, despite the uncomfortableness, because it is uncomfortable. It's a different way of living. It really is. But the experiences, man, we have stories for days. We can look at something and remember and like take us back to something. And it's just like so clear. But the amount of stories that we have, the ones that are like, holy crap, we laugh about it now, but at the time it wasn't so cool, or the ones that like left us like completely speechless and breathless. Like there's so many experiences that we have encountered and memories that we have made that like, I know that I get to, when it comes to the end of my day, I can truly say I have no regret. Because I have gone and taken the risk and decided to go out and explore and do and live the life that I am choosing to, despite how different it is from society, despite how different it is from how other people may view it. I have to know that this is my life and this is the one that I choose. And that's all that really matters.
Yeah, I dig it.
Yeah.
I think that's all I got.
All right.
With that, this is episode 7 of the Dustin and Tanya podcast.
2.0,
because this is season 2. We're grateful you guys joined us. If you guys got anything out of this, please let us know. And if you have any ideas of anything you would like us to cover, we would love to do it for you. We thank you. We love you. Catch you next time.
Bye, guys.